Now, god damn it, I decided to take a little social media break at the worst time possible. The 2020 XXL cover got revealed like what, about a week ago, and I just found out. Anyway, that's for anyone who's wondering why I'm making a video on it so late. But yeah, the 2020 XXL Freshman Class. Let's talk about it. Now, in front of you right now, you have the official cover. So let's start with my favorite artist from the cover. Can you guess who that is? If you can, then I'm very disappointed because that means that you don't actually know me like that. All jokes aside, my favorite artist from this cover is, of course, Polo G. Now, Polo G could be the only person on this cover and I'd somehow still be satisfied with it. Let me just say that I'm very happy to see him on the cover. If you ask me, I think he should have been on it last year, definitely. Let's put the numbers aside when it comes to him because apart from, of course, being one of the most popping young rappers out right now, Polo G has put up the records. He's dropped so much quality work, you know, he's very consistent. He has a story behind his name on top of actually being able to rap. His melodic ability is absolutely insane. Die a Legend was a solid body of work, one of my favorites from last year. He of course followed that up with The GOAT this year, which is one of my favorites from this year, if not my favorite. Polo G has really been able to become one of the most respectable young hip-hop artists in the game despite not being recognized in the industry for that long of a time. He's one of those names that you just can't look past. A lot of really good things about his entire movement, and I think his overall potential and possible development as an artist is out of this world. One thing I'd like to see from Polo G in the future is to not be afraid of going out of his comfort zone as far as his production goes. If there's one kind of critique I'd give Polo, it's definitely that. I think he does a really good job on the beat selection part of his music. 9 times out of 10, the instrumentals definitely complement his raps, which is a really good quality to have because it shows us that he's very much in touch with his work. But the next step for him is to rap on the kind of production and just beats that sound unconventional to that Polo G sound. I feel like that's when we're gonna see what he's actually capable of producing. This is one reason why, you know, you do hear some people say that Polo G's flow sounds very similar as far as from track to track, which to some extent I actually agree with. I think the production part of his music is the biggest reason why his flow patterns blend together so much. His music overall has a very nice ring to it. It sounds highly pleasing from a musical perspective. He stays in his comfort zone in terms of the kind of beats he raps on, which is directly related to what we talked about. But apart from that, Polo G, a name I'm of course not surprised to see on this cover. The good thing is him being part of this cover is such a minor part of his career. It's a good look, but I'm saying no one would look at him differently if he didn't have a placement on it. Obviously he didn't need it, but I'm very happy to see that the boy made it on the cover. Now let's move on to the next artist on the cover, which is Jack Harlow. The response to Jack Harlow being on this cover is actually very surprising to me. Even though I just got back from my little social media break, I've seen a lot of one-hit wonder comments aimed at Jack Harlow. A lot of people saying, what is this TikTok rapper doing on the cover? And like I said, I'm very surprised by a lot of those reactions even existing in the first place. Jack Harlow has been putting in work for some time now. To me at least, it goes without saying, but he deserved to be on this cover. A lot of people may not see this because, you know, the song is still big right now, but he's way bigger than just what's poppin'. Obviously that's the song that put him on the map and took him to completely different heights, but Jack Harlow actually has a very solid catalog. On top of that, he's a great rapper. He's actually been improving from project to project. If you listen to them and pay attention, it's almost like a lot of people heard what's poppin' on the radio and assumed that all of his music sounds just like that, which of course couldn't be further from the truth. He has a lot of slept on gems like River Road, which is one of my favorites from him. His Confetti tape is pretty solid. He has an ear for music, which can be heard in his material. Jack Harlow is just an all-around dope rapper to me. To me, he does represent a completely new wave of white rappers who are actually considered cool by the general public. Only saying that because he's of course white, and I think we all know that white rappers coming into the game have that stigma surrounding them because of how they look. A lot of people don't want to put respect on their names, let alone even give their music a chance. But when it comes to Jack, he does have a very particular image. That's why I think he does stick out from the rest of the cover. His entire presence in the game is really fresh to me, at least. You know, that's what I think about that, and I like what he has to offer. Now moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is Annalie Choppa, aka the Top Shotta, aka got the bombs like a kata. Dandara. Now, Annalie Chapa, the youngest artist on this cover, but also the most energetic one. This guy is just full of energy in his music. I think that's why so many people gravitated towards him when he was first introduced to the scene with Shada Flow. That Shada Flow wave is what pushed him to the top, and he's actually been elevating since then. Annalie Chapa has, despite being the underdog in a weird way, managed to keep extending the lifespan of his entire movement. My underdog comment comes from seeing how he got counted out as that young funny animated rapper who had that song that was blown up, Shada Flow, but he really didn't have a known track record. I just think there was a lack of familiarity to Annalie Chapa when he was first coming out. He didn't really have any big rappers backing him up or co-signing him, but yet despite that managed to go beyond that Shada Flow wave, which I think is dope. He dropped his debut album Top Shada very recently, and I've had that on repeat. When it comes to Annalie Chapa, the way I see it is everything is just about staying out the way and just doing what he's been doing for the last year and a half. He's been popping, which is working hard. He's a really young guy, hasn't even turned 18 just yet, but at the same time is ahead of a lot of people in his age group. He's managed to build a pretty solid fan base, and his presence, especially on the internet, is really strong. I'm a fan of Annalie. I think he has a really long way to go still, so much more to prove from a musical standpoint, but he's on a good path. Now, moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is Lil Keed. I don't personally have that much to say about Lil Keed's music, apart from he sounds way too much like Young Thug for my taste, and why should I listen to Lil Keed when I can listen to Young Thug and get the real thing instead? No point, right? I've given his music a chance in the past, but wasn't really feeling it. I'm not really getting anything from him that I can't find elsewhere. He's obviously a product of Thug and that whole Atlanta trap sound, which I'm of course a fan of, but there's a whole lot of other rappers in that lane that I'd much rather listen to than Lil Keed. People are definitely rocking with him though. I'm not trying to knock his wave. He didn't make it on the cover for no reason, but yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next artist, which is Baby Keem. Now, shout out to Baby Keem, definitely the most lyrically talented rapper from this cover. This is a very refreshing name to see on here. We all know that XXL has included less and less traditionally lyrical rappers on their covers these past few years. Putting Baby Keem on here was a really good decision because this guy is as gifted as you can possibly get from a rapper standpoint. Obviously an excellent storyteller. If you've listened to his music, you know that. Baby Keem is just all around nice, man. He's on that upper echelon of young lyrical rappers in this new generation of hip-hop artists. Apart from being a refreshing name and face to see on the cover, just as a rapper in comparison to the rest of the industry, the same applies there. The sky is truly the limit for this guy, real talk. So many good things that can be found all over his music, and I'm very excited to see where his music ends up taking him. Moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is Fivio Foreign, aka the A-God. Now, Fivio Foreign is of course a Brooklyn rapper who's a product of that new Brooklyn drill wave that's been taken over. He's a very charismatic sounding rapper, very animated in his records, especially when it comes to the ad-libs. Fivio has a very unpredictable delivery, which I'm personally a fan of if it's the rapping style that he's rocking. This guy sounds like he's always having the time of his life whenever he's recording music, and I think that kind of energy mixed with the amount of charisma he's given off in his tracks is why people like him so much. His music can get somewhat monotone if you are bumping his tracks back to back to back because of his very much one-sided style of rapping. Fivio Foreign to me is an occasion kind of rapper, which means I can personally only bump his music on certain occasions. And yes, those certain occasions that I'm talking about is at, for example, the club, but then nigga COVID is stopping me from doing that nowadays though. Anyway, moving on to the next rapper, which is Lil TJ. Now shout out to Lil TJ. I've been rocking with him ever since he dropped Brothers, which was back in the summer of 2018 when he started blowing up. This is one of those rappers from this cover that I really mess with. Lil TJ got a lot of passion in his records, which I'm a fan of. He's of course in that Polo/Roddy lane where you mix some real shit with some great melodies. I think he's been rocking his style crazy good ever since he came out. He's very young, has a really high ceiling for growth, knows how to put together an interesting sounding album. True to Myself, which is the album he dropped back in October of 2019, is still in rotation for me personally. A lot of good songs on there, a lot of bangers, a lot of just straight up real and honest raps mixed with some great production and fire melodies. Even though I don't personally have a lot of songs from State of Emergency on repeat, I think the intention behind that project, which was to kind of bring together New York and celebrate the city, that was a very honorable and dope move on his part. That project was of course an embodiment, okay, musically speaking, of that rising Brooklyn drill wave. But I have to say, I think Lil TJ does a way better job on his music when he drops records like Brothers and One Take Take, that's one of my favorites from the album. Hold On is also another really good one. And then Top of My Game, I think Lil TJ has enough talent to the point where I'm pretty confident he's gonna top True to Myself. True to Myself is a little bit of Lil TJ's equivalent of Die a Legend by Polo G. It showcased his talent, had a good mix of different kinds of rapping on it, but you know that there's more to him than what we heard there. Like Polo G did on his The GOAT album, dropped something that was a definite step up from his introduction project to the game. I feel like Lil TJ is headed in that direction, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. Moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is 24K Golden. Now this is a name I've seen floating around for some time now, but I haven't properly listened to his music until this video. My first impression of his music is it sounds good. He reminds me a little bit of a Juice WRLD, but a positive one, if that makes any sense. His music is very feel good sounding, heavy on the melodies. Not sure if I would straight up label him as a rapper, just like I wouldn't label Juice WRLD or Post Malone one. He's definitely a hybrid, you know, a rapper slash singer. Haven't gotten a chance to dive deeper into his music. From what I can tell, he has a very unique wave going, isn't very much connected to the rest of the industry, purely speaking from a public standpoint. From what I can tell, his music is the sole purpose why he's popping. Haven't seen his name being mentioned outside of his music, which is a good thing, of course. Something unrelated to the music itself, but I watched a couple interviews from him. Seems like a really cool guy, really positive spirit, which does make sense when I think about it due to his music giving off that feel good vibe. I think if anything, making people feel like they can connect to you whether or not you sound like a Juice WRLD who gets you in your feelings and has a darker tone to his stuff, or being a 24K Golden who has a very uplifting sound. That connection is very important, and from what I can tell, just from my first impression, 24K Golden is doing a good job at that. Moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is Chica. Actually, the first time I'm hearing about this rapper, I've never heard or seen her name anywhere, which actually excites me because that's the point of the XXL cover, or at least that's what it used to be. My first impression of her music is this girl can actually rap. Like I'm talking rap. She got bars, no cap. Since this was my first time hearing about her, I had no kind of expectations of what her music was gonna sound like, but I'm hearing a rapper who knows how to rap really well, mixes that on top of some really soothing and mellow beats. That's only partially though. I listened to one of her songs titled Crown, and that was super funky, sounded like some Anderson .Paak type of shit. Apart from that, I don't have that much to say about her just yet, but what I can say is she's definitely one of the harder female rappers I've heard about in a while, and the fact that XXL included someone on this list that I've never heard about is good to see. Moving on to the next artist on the cover, and that is Mulatto, another artist that I've yet to check out until this cover. She's definitely on that hot girl shit, the stallion way. She's from Atlanta, which makes complete sense because that's where her music sounds like. Not sure if I would personally bump her music though. She doesn't make music for us fellas. No, she don't. She obviously makes it for the females. Ain't no surprise considering the content. I think a better candidate for this one would have been Flo Milli. She's on that hot girl shit as well, but she's actually super dope though. Her music is highly listenable, probably one of the only female rappers in that hot girl lane that I can actually bump and enjoy. Flo Milli shit, his baby mama is my groupie. She go crazy. I love how much her personality shines through in her music too. She should have gotten this placement. Moving on to the next artist on the cover, which is Rod Wave. Now this guy is dope. I mess with Rod Wave. I think him being on this cover makes complete sense. He's had an amazing 2020, obviously talented as hell, especially on the vocal side of things. Definitely one of those guys on this list whose music has a really high replay value. I can just play some of his songs on repeat and not get sick of him, probably because he's such a breath of fresh air in the industry, kind of like Baby Keem. Rod Wave is, you know, that guy right now. He's growing by the second. So many people are tuning into his music, and yeah, he's cool. Let's move on to the next and last artist on the cover, which is I'm with the gang, out with the mob, but what you thinking? Remember them days? That shit was hard, a nigga been thinking. Cowboy, not cowboy, Calboy. A young Chicago rapper who's been doing his thing for some time now. Cowboy sounds more like a polished version of Lil Durk on the vocal aspect. He's definitely in that Polo, Roddy, Lil TJ lane. Sounds like he's influenced by Young Thug a little, who's not though, especially nowadays. Even though I haven't really heard anything from him that completely blew me away, I still like what he has has to offer. I think Cowboy's dope. He has a couple of tracks that I consistently bump, one of them being Envy Me, his biggest song, and the other one being Caroline, two of my favorites from him. Now, just overall, what do I think about this list? Definitely not a bad one, not at all, far from it. A lot of great artists on here who deserved to be on it. Besides that though, I think it's mainly the Polos and Elise and TJs who I think the majority of people were really anticipating to see on here. That of course does make sense. These are the guys who are the face of this new generation of young rappers in a lot of ways. By the way, speaking of young rappers, I actually really wanted to see Lil Tecca on here as well, but I just found out that he declined to be on it. That was confirmed by his manager, so the source for this one ain't no dude, trust me. Sad to see that he declined. I personally think he would have fit right into it. Obviously he doesn't need it, but he has an album titled Virgo World that's coming out sometime in the near future, so the extra promotion wouldn't really hurt. Don Toliver was a name a lot of people were anticipating to see on here, but he wasn't on it because he wasn't willing to do a freestyle or a cypher. Pretty much all he was willing to do was to be on the cover, and that's it. So XXL wasn't rocking with that since they want someone who's gonna participate in all the activities surrounding the cover. Understandable, since there's been rappers in the past who've been on the cover but haven't really done a freestyle, so they want someone who's just gonna participate, that's all. Pop Smoke was actually the first person who was picked as an official placement, but because of his untimely passing, things obviously changed. According to XXL, they still wanted to include him on it as a way to honor him since they picked him before he passed away, but his team respectfully declined, and that's why he wasn't on it. I was also expecting to see Chicago's own King Von on the cover, but he's definitely gonna be on next year's list if he doesn't decline it. I would also love to see guys like Aaron May on it as well, even though I deep down knew that was never gonna happen because XXL don't really be paying attention to the culture like that, unfortunately. In case anyone who works at XXL is watching this video, definitely consider Aaron May as a candidate for next year's cover. Here's an amazing young rapper who should definitely be considered for it. 30 Deep Grimy has also been killing it too. I was expecting to see him on here, but you know, I'm a fan of him and maybe he's gonna be on next year's cover. The guy's a monster, just dropped a really dope project a few weeks back. I mess with him. But yeah, there you have it, the 2020 XXL Freshman Class. What do you think about this one? Do you think this year's class was good? Any other names you were expecting to see on it? Who's your favorite artist on this cover? Definitely let me know in the comment section below and let's have a discussion about this.